Back in the day, when buying multiple consoles was out of the question, you had a hard choice to make. Were you a Nintendo kid, a Sega soldier, or maybe a TurboGrafx thing? More often than not, you ended up with a worthwhile console, but sometimes you put your money into one that just didn't live up to the hype, and ended up being abandoned by its creators shortly after release. Here are some of those consoles that some grown-up kids are probably still bitter about. In no particular order, here are 10 failed game consoles. Let's get this one out of the way early because I covered it already extensively in this video right here, which you should totally watch. But yes, the Gizmondo was a failure from the planning stage all the way to release. And being backed by the Swedish Mafia on top of it just makes the overall story even more hilarious. Trying to challenge Nintendo in the mobile market wasn't an entirely misguided mistake, but mistakes number 2 through 80 include poor third-party game support, poor advertising, no one selling the fucking thing, and overall, making the system super expensive. Releasing a cheaper version with ads was an effort to alleviate that, I guess. If only the ads actually worked. Guess this came out too early, cause mobile games nowadays have this ad system nailed down. A common question I've seen raised over these past 2 or 3 console generations is why doesn't Apple jump in the console market? They've taken over a bunch of different industries. Why not try playing games? All this while ignoring the Mac bonfire and the App Store even more bigger bonfire. Well, they have, and it failed spectacularly. The Pippin was a collaborative effort from Apple and everyone's favorite mobile suit dealer, Bandai, and it was released in 1996 with a price tag of $599. Intended to be an open source CD-ROM console running a Mac OS, Apple hoped that it would be the most adaptable console that would be attractive for third parties to develop for. That was a very costly mistake, as the Pippin sold horribly worldwide and barely had games released for the hardware, leading to a 1-year lifespan with it being officially discontinued in 1997. The memory of this failure probably scared Apple away from the console market for a good while, which in hindsight was probably the best decision. Tiger Electronics is well known for the release of a massive wave of poor mobile console alternatives that were entertaining for about 5 minutes till you threw it to the side and moved on with your life. Well, they attempted to do an actual mobile console, and lo and behold, it was also thrown away quickly. The Gamecom, yes, that is its actual name, was released in 1997 and was marketed for about $69.95. That's amazing, right? You'd think they'd be flying off the shelves. Well, it didn't. While the Gamecom had some interesting features, like a touchscreen and functionality of a PDA, it was also severely lacking in many different areas, including being black and white and extremely hard to see with its tiny screen. The controls were also just as bad, making most games absolutely unplayable. Yeah, it featured Duke Nukem and Mortal Kombat somehow, if you can actually see it. Between this and the previously failed Tiger Electronics console R-Zone, they had a really bad record for actually trying to get into the console market properly. You know what? Maybe I should have put the R-Zone in this spot. Cause what the fuck is this? A Nintendo console? Huh? Well, buckle up. There may be another one on this list as well. But the Virtual Boy was a product released way before its time, honestly. Released in 1995 for about $179.95, this combination console was meant to address the lull in the release schedule for Nintendo before the 64 was ready to go, while also trying to innovate. Something Nintendo has been known to do in lieu of what's expected. 3D in gaming? What could go wrong? Well, your eyesight for one. Having only a 2-color palette to emulate 3D, Nintendo chose red and black, which in hindsight wasn't the best decision. Between straining your eyesight trying to see the limited quantity of games, and your neck trying to see in the goggles and stilts that the Virtual Boy was designed as, trying out the Virtual Boy just wasn't worth it in the end, leading to one of Nintendo's biggest regrets. Nintendo would eventually get the concept correct with the release of the 3DS, though most people would be lying if they said they didn't primarily play it with the 3D switch off. Nintendo? What are you doing here again? Well, actually, Nintendo only has a short part in this dumpster fire. This console was primarily headed by Phillips, the well-known electronics company. The CDI was released in 1990 initially, with an initial price of $1,000. which was outrageous. The price point was being justified unsuccessfully by claiming it wasn't just an early CD media player, but a complete home entertainment media machine. It wasn't even marketed primarily as a game console until late in its lifespan. Phillips also had the advantage of having the opportunity to use Nintendo property characters after a failed deal with Nintendo, of all people, to make a CD add-on for the Super Nintendo, but made the absolute worst Mario and Zelda games in response. Fun fact, this same deal for a CD add-on for the Super Nintendo was first signed on by Sony, but Nintendo broke the agreement to work with Phillips. Sony would then do their own research and development and later release the PlayStation to, let's say, positive reception. Oh, this hurts. But overall, it cannot be denied that the PlayStation Vita failed to keep Sony's mobile dreams alive. The PlayStation Vita was released in 2011 at the intro price of $249.99, intended to continue Sony's foothold in the mobile console market after the PSP made a name for itself a console generation earlier. While it boasted impressive upgrades and features like console-like graphics, remote play, more memory, and internet capabilities, the Vita hit a hard wall after an initially successful release with hardware sales. And while it had solid third-party support for games and even apps, the consoles eventually weren't selling. Even after changing strategies, the Vita couldn't handle the looming mobile phone gaming market and ended up ending Sony's prospective mobile line of consoles at 2, which is a shame, honestly. The PSP was a welcome addition to the market, and the Vita could have been a competitive alternative, but the player base just wasn't there. Now this is true failure at all stages that I don't feel bad about. Atari used to be the king of the console market, culminating in their dominance during the age of the 2600. Then the video game crash in 1983 happened and whoops, there it goes. Atari tried to reclaim their throne with a broken 5200, the slightly better 7800, and the ambitious Lynx, but none made that big of an impact. With their backs against the wall, Atari needed to hit a home run, and against all odds, they immediately took a grand slam swing with the Atari Jaguar and immediately tore all 3 ligaments in their knee and soiled themselves on the way down. The Jaguar tried to come out the gate with the claim that they were the first 64-bit console on the market, ahead of the PS1, Saturn, and N64. To which it's true if you count 32-bit processors taped together as 64-bit. Consumers weren't fooled, however, and with the absolutely absurd controller, seriously, what do you do with all these buttons? And not a first-rate game library, the Jaguar bombed. That's not all, however. Atari, seeing another console go down in flames, decided the best course of action was to release a CD add-on. It didn't work. So you know I said mobile phone gaming is pretty much taken over the mobile market with apps on phones replacing stuff like the Game Boy? Well, the Engage had that in mind just 15 years earlier, and not well. The Engage was released in 2003 by mobile phone manufacturer Nokia with an initial price of $299. Its big gimmick was it was a smartphone and gaming console in 2003. What wizardry is this? It even had a good lineup of games to be released for it. So how did this console end up on this list? First off, the design of the actual phone was an engineering nightmare. The rounded taco design of the phone made it difficult to actually talk on it without looking stupid. Second, the phone buttons crammed on the phone made controlling the games exceedingly difficult, and worst of all, some world-class intellect made it so you can only change games when you take out the phone battery. Yeah, so be surprised when you hear that the console and games sold exceedingly poorly, and even after some redesigns, it was discontinued in 2006. Alright, now hang on. Let me explain. Like I said before, Nintendo has always walked to the beat of their own drums in regards to hardware production. While they were the headliner during the NES and Super Nintendo era, the N64 and GameCube saw the introduction of heated rivals, Sony and Microsoft, and their initial consoles that pushed sales of Nintendo consoles down. Even then, Nintendo didn't try and copy the modern blueprint in lieu of just producing what they thought was innovative. This strategy produced gangbusters with the Wii and let off a couple awkward coughs with the Wii U. The Wii U was released in 2012 for an initial price of $299 for the base model and $349 for the deluxe. As the follow-up from the Wii, Nintendo thought they could make lightning strike twice with a gimmick, and the tablet controller with its own functions wasn't that bad of an idea. Problem though, the rollout was confusing. The way Nintendo premiered the console, the audience couldn't tell if it was a new one or just a new tablet peripheral. On top of that, the Wii worked because it was simple. Use the motion control stick to bowl, play tennis, hack up people with a glowing laser sword, and you and your grandma pretty much get it instantly. The Wii U didn't have that simplicity. Most games had you ham-fistedly use the tablet for gameplay. That was a detriment to the core game, especially in Star Fox Zero's case. The tablet itself couldn't even be separated a room's length from the console, making it feel just like one confusing mess. The Wii U is by far Nintendo's biggest mainline console failure, and if it wasn't for the Switch coming in and righting the ship, it might have caused irreversible damage to Nintendo's reputation. Now, what the hell is an Ouya? Well, in contrast to the failing big boy consoles that I talked about before, the Ouya was an indie console that was almost fully funded by fans. That's right, this wasn't company backed. This console had its start on the website Kickstarter, where projects and ideas can be pitched to be funded by donations from prospective fans. The Ouya was meant to be an Android-based console that played all the mobile games for a phone and tablet, both a controller and ability to play on TV. For some reason, this excited backers in 2012 apparently, because not only was the Ouya fully funded, but it became one of Kickstarter's highest earning projects ever. So with it being fully funded, production flew through and the Ouya was officially released in 2013 for $99. What a deal, right? Well, it sold poorly. People outside of the initial bubble had no interest in buying a dedicated Android gaming console when they had phones and tablets at the ready already. Despite trying to keep the thing alive, the Ouya crashed and burned for good in 2015, in which case the assets were sold off to the Razor company, and the creators rode their bicycles into the sunset. Have any other consoles that fumbled on the 1 yard line? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.